Alright, y'all. Hey, everybody. It's me. This is probably going to be one of the most important videos I ever make. This is not a funny video. This is actually a pretty sad video, and it's about Afghanistan and what's going on there now. You're going to have to deal with my rambling because I have pages upon pages upon pages of notes and quotes that I have been taking, things I have been observing, and I just want to share some of them with you. First of all, I want to say what's going on in Afghanistan is so horrible. A lot of times we see things on the news and we think, oh, that's bad, or it would suck to be them, or I'm praying for them. Actually think about it, though. Imagine having to live in that fear. Imagine knowing that if you go outside, you could die. Imagine knowing if you were a woman, you could be raped at any time by multiple men, and it doesn't matter. Your children can be taken away from you. You can be killed. Just imagine your worst fear, everything bad that could possibly happen to you. And I believe that's how Afghans are feeling right now. Now, the reason I feel so passionate about it is, I'll confess, I was one of those that always watch TV, and I feel bad when I see something happening in another country. But here, it's different for me because the Afghan people, they wanted this change. When we went over there 20 years ago, there are so many of them that helped us. They helped keep our soldiers safe. They saved our soldiers' lives, whether it be by interpreting, telling them what they knew about, the Taliban, any intelligence they had that could help the Americans, they gave. And now we're just leaving them out to dry. So I'm going to go through some points that I have been keeping track on, and I want to know what you think at the end. Leave a comment and let me know what you think. I don't want this to turn political, and I want everybody to respect each other's opinions, but this is me, this is how I feel, and I'm going to explain why this is how I feel. Okay, first of all, the Taliban, who now controls the whole country, is absolutely crazy. What's even crazier is you and I bought their weapons, because they're using all the weapons that America has supplied in Afghanistan for the last 20 years. So the group that helped hide Osama bin Laden is now fighting, chanting all over the country, "Death to America," while holding weapons that we paid for. I heard a couple weeks ago somebody said, well, Trump had decided he wanted to take the troops out of Afghanistan too. That is very true. That's not the question. The question is how they were taken out of Afghanistan. Women basically have lost all their privileges. Even the Taliban are on TV saying, no, they haven't. Everything's going to stay the same. There are reports that salons are already being burnt down. And according to the radical Muslim law, they have to wear the headdresses and their eyes can only be seen. And one of the best quotes I've heard so far is from President Obama's ambassador to Afghanistan, Brian Croker. And this is what he said. Quote, "The way this was done was a handover to the Taliban. We have hung all the Afghans out to dry. I'm left with some great questions in my mind about Biden's ability to lead our nation as commander-in-chief, to have read this so wrong, or even worse, to have understood what was likely to happen and not care." As you recall, Biden just did his interview last night or the night before, and his main point was he has no regrets whatsoever. Biden was asked in July by a reporter, "Some Vietnam veterans see parallels between this withdrawal and Saigon. Do you see any?" And Biden's response was, "None whatsoever. There will be no circumstances where people are lifted off the roof in helicopters." Well, number one, she didn't mean just that scene. Number two, people are being lifted off the roof now in helicopters, trying to get them out. We still have about 15,000 Americans there, and then we have the allies that helped us, which to me, those people that put their family's life at risk and their life at risk to help America and help the cause in their country, they are a lot more American than a lot of people I know, and I know that's sad to say, but that's just how I feel. Again in July, Biden said, "There is no way that the Taliban can take over Afghanistan. 2 weeks later, the Taliban took over Afghanistan. In his speech, Biden's speech, he did say, this did unfold more quickly than we thought. But then he goes on to claim that Trump is responsible because he had to stick to the timeline that Trump gave. That is the worst excuse I've ever heard. He's anti-everything else, Trump. So as commander-in-chief, he is in charge of what's happened. And I want to put out almost all of his security advisors warned against doing it this way. Nobody wanted to, except for Joe Biden. So never mind all the people with years and years military experience, or the ones that were actually in the military or over in Afghan fighting. They don't matter. Biden wanted them out, and he has no regrets. He has made that clear over and over and over. Now, what I find to be one of the most offensive things he said, and I quote in his speech, he gave the Afghan army every opportunity to defend their nation, but they failed to protect their homeland. But, and this is true, the Afghan people quickly dropped their weapons and ran. But guess what? I found out why. And it's something you don't see on CNN or a lot of the news reporting. I don't know if eventually it'll come out, but I did a lot of research because I couldn't understand exactly why they would just quit fighting. Number one, they didn't have any experience except for what we taught them. And when they see the person that's supposed to be there holding their hand through this and developing them into a nation, just drop everything and run, they're probably scared to death. But Biden, when he first took over, he started pulling his advisors and stuff out of the government over there that were guiding with them with this and that and how they should spend their money and how a normal democratic government should run. So when that started, the soldiers in Afghanistan, I think the number was 80% of the soldiers in Afghanistan have not been paid 1 cent in the last 7 months due to corruption and stealing billions in the government. So if we had stayed involved as an oversight in their government and helped them along the way further, maybe that wouldn't have happened. But those soldiers had not been paid in 7 months. And that is a fact. That is not just a rumor. I have fact-checked it. Would you stay and fight if you hadn't been paid in 7 months? I mean, come on, people, really. Trump did want to bring home the troops. He wanted to be out of Afghanistan too. The difference is Joe Biden just pulled the rug out from under him. He's just like, come home. And we see how that's working because now he's having to send troops back in just to evacuate the Americans. And it's a lot more dangerous climate now because of what he's done. Trump wanted to do it in a structured manner to where it wouldn't be like this. And I'm not up here pro-Trump, and I'm not up here necessarily bashing Biden, but when it comes to this, Biden has failed. His poll 2 weeks ago, he had a 57% poll rating. He's at 46%. That must be dead people, part of that poll, because whether you like Trump or not, in this situation right now, anybody that has a heart or any common sense knows that if Trump was president, this would not be happening. And again, I want to reiterate, at the end of Trump's presidency, he lost me. I don't want to see him back in office again, but I'm just saying, there at times like this, I think he would be better. George Bush would be better because he's the one that started it. Obama's advisors that were advisors to him have let it be clearly known how Obama feels. He thinks Joe Biden is royally screwing everything up, and he is. Another point I wanted to make was the Democrats agree with Republicans. That's a shock this day and time. But they agree that the troops should have been left a little longer, and that bringing the troops home is the ultimate goal. The question is, why was it done like this? How did they end up with our weapons? Now we're in a mad dash frenzy to burn all the documents in the embassies and stuff. This is crazy. This is like a preschooler could do better than what Biden is doing with this. And I still can't get over the fact that he overruled most of the Army generals. That just puzzles me to death. Why were we so unprepared? The Democrats want answers. The head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Democrat Mark Warner, is vowing to investigate why we weren't better prepared for the worst case scenario, and this is the worst case scenario. Democrats are mad. Representative Seth Moulton has had problems with how the withdrawal was going and it's being managed, and the lack of planning that prevented any American citizens and allies getting out safely after a certain point. In his speech, he didn't address the concern of our allies being left. And that is true. Biden did not address the concerns or the well-being of the allies being left. Those people that pledged to help us, in return, we promised to bring them here when it was over. Also, they're currently trying to work on a bill that would bring 30,000 refugees to the state of Georgia because the governor in Georgia said he would welcome them. Refugees should be welcomed in this country. But first, our citizens, Americans, need to be brought home. And the people that helped us, the allies, they should be first priority, not trying to get 30,000 refugees here before they can even get a control on this mess that has been created. Whew. He also made an excuse that holds no water during his speech for not evacuating our Afghan allies, which was, many of them don't want to come. There's been a backlog of visas for years, people trying to get here. Afghans only wanted what they were promised, which was to be out of that country and a life here for helping and protecting our soldiers. If you just look at the pictures out of Kabul of the thousands of people storming planes, so many people in a plane they can't take off, and the absolute worst video is that U.S. Air Force plane. If you haven't seen it, it's hard to watch, but I suggest everybody watch it. That plane, it's a huge U.S. cargo plane, and it's taken off from the runway. These people are so desperate to get away from the Afghans, they're clinging on to the side of the plane. And a few of them managed to hold on to the plane as it is taking off. And once it gets a few thousand feet in the air, you start seeing them fall one by one by one. It's almost like what happened on 9/11 when the people had to jump out of the buildings. It's so reminiscent of that. And it's just crazy. These people are trying to escape the country where they were tortured their whole lives, where they harbored the world's most evil terrorist, Osama bin Laden, not just him. The day Kabul fell to the Taliban, they released every prisoner out of the jails and prisons. Then they go on TV and say they just want to keep peace and the women can have their rights and stuff. But yet, I think as of yesterday, all but 3 of the salons where women got their hair done in Kabul had been burnt down. Because up until 20 years ago, women had to wear their full headdress and their eyes could only be shown, no makeup, no hair cutting, no hair coloring, no nothing. But all that's over now, all because we have a president that felt like, oh, troops need to come home. And I understand they need to come home, but there's a right and wrong way to do things. I don't know how any human being can look at this, and be okay. And I also don't know how anybody could defend the president's actions. And the few people who have tried to go on TV and doing it, they failed miserably. Because all they do is dance around the questions, and every single reporter gets mad at them. And to the Democrats out there, please don't get mad for what I'm about to say. But you know it's bad when the Clinton News Network, CNN, turns on the Biden administration. Almost every news outlet are like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Now, there have been people that have said there's something wrong with his competency in mind. I don't necessarily buy into that. I don't know what the man's mental condition is, but I tell you what, if it were judged off of this, it'd be time to lock him away somewhere permanently. There's still, there's just so much. There's so much. I just can't get over the fact he said that the people don't want to come. There is a senator who was talking, and he said he was on the phone last night with an Afghan. This was a Democratic senator whom had helped us for 13 years. 13 years, provided interpretation, shown where cells of terrorism were in the country, and all he wanted to do was to get to America with his wife. This senator said that he is pressuring the administration because there is still time to save innocent lives. Granted, there's so many been lost already, but there is still time. But that depends on what the president is willing to do in the next few days. He said he loves Joe Biden and has agreed with much of what he has done, but he can't say everything is fine now. Democrats have launched a probe into the U.S. policy on Afghanistan, which will analyze Biden's decision for the withdrawal. This is being led by Democrats. Afghanistan now will be the breeding ground for terrorism. It was before, so now it's going to be with a vengeance. Especially, we came in and we've kept them squashed for, well, I wouldn't say squashed, they were still active, but they couldn't do anything major for 20 years. For 20 years, we have kept them from doing the absolute worst things they could, kept them from doing another 9/11. How do you think they feel now, knowing that we held them down by their neck for so long, and now they have a whole entire country to do what they want to? What do you think's going to happen? I mean, honestly, what do you think's going to happen? The Taliban sent a message to Biden. This was a week and a half ago. He shouldn't trouble himself or his country with the business of the Taliban. He doesn't have any other option. Regardless of how you feel about Trump, how do you think he would have taken that comment? Right. What does Biden do? You're right. Let's get out. Bob Menendez, he is the Democratic chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, said, "The events in recent days have been the culmination of a series of mistakes made by Democrats and Republican administrations over the past 20 years. Yeah, there have been mistakes made here and there, I'm sure by both parties. But I also know that Bush, Obama, and Trump, you would never think those three would agree on anything, but they do, and that's how this is being handled. It is horrible." I wrote this quote the other night, and I think it's pretty good. Biden is going down in history as the president who presided over the humiliating final act in an Afghan-American experience. Afghan had been a third world country, repressed, dictated its whole life as a country. America came in. The Afghan people finally felt like they could breathe. They were given freedoms that every person should have, basic freedoms. They were trying to build a democratic country, and in less than 2 months, Biden rips it all up. What is wrong with him? I didn't vote for Biden, but I was willing to give him a chance. Unlike, there are a lot of Republicans who, he's the worst, No matter if my guy wins or loses, I am always willing, with an open mind, to give the next president a chance. But he should not even be allowed to be president one more day. I went over to 30,000 people in Georgia. The women of Afghanistan, they're already enforcing the brutal interpretation of oppressive Islam. Oh, there was one girl that had called in to a lady. The lady was giving an interview with CNN. She was a soldier that had done 3 tours there. And this lady was an interpreter in Iraq. They had reached her village last week, and I forgot what day it was. But they raped her. Several men raped her. They knew that her father had also helped the Americans in some type of way. He owned a grocery store in which he let the Americans shop, and he would order things that they needed. They burnt down the grocery store and killed her mother and father, and they took her 9-year-old and 11-year-old daughter, and now they are going to be their sex slaves, the Talibans. And all she has left is herself, and she's crying on the phone. That is crazy. That is just beyond crazy. while watching the news the other day. They were chanting, and the news reporter, asked someone who spoke both languages, what are they chanting? And they were chanting, "Death to America, death to America." And my final piece of information here, there's a reporter from CNN. Her name is Clarissa Ward. She's a really good reporter. She was there reporting on what was going on. The Taliban pushed her to the side and told her on camera that she needed to stand to the side and stay back because she's a woman.